Hey there, friend. If you've ever found yourself lying awake at 2 a.m. wondering how life turned into a chaotic mix of burnt dinners, cold coffee, broken trust, and one too many spiritual awakenings that just made you more tired, this one's for you. This isn't another motivational pep talk, and it's definitely not therapy in a robe. This is the raw, honest truth about relationships, burnout, why we chase what we don't need, and why macaroni has somehow become a symbol of our inner breakdown. So pull up a chair, pour whatever's left in the coffee pot, and let's talk. Not like gurus and followers, but like two humans trying to figure this mess out. Welcome to the conversation your heart's been begging you to have. Let's talk about the kind of habits that quietly train people to stay broke. Yeah, I said it. Poverty's got habits, and a lot of people are unknowingly loyal to them. First, the classic, feeling sorry for yourself. Oh boy, that one's practically an Olympic sport. And believe me, I've seen pros. We wrap ourselves in a warm, cozy blanket of self-pity, because deep down, we love the way it feels. It makes us the hero of our own tragedy. We start saying things like, well, it's just my bad luck, or, if I lived somewhere better, or, if I were younger, richer, smarter, taller, you name it. I've met folks who've turned whining into a lifestyle. Everything's unfair, everything's hard, and it's always someone else's fault. Weather's wrong, boss is mean, parents didn't raise them right, and somehow even the dog looks judgmental. And you know what? At first, people feel bad for you. They bring you soup, maybe an orange. But eventually, they stop calling, because hanging around a professional victim is emotionally exhausting. Now I get it. I've had my fair share of "why me?" moments. But here's the kicker. Staying stuck there guarantees you'll never move forward. The world doesn't pay people to feel sorry for themselves. It pays people who solve problems, even tiny ones. I remember this guy at a business seminar who said, if you want to make money, find pain and fix it. I didn't like half of what he said, but that stuck. Next bad habit, saving like your life depends on it, but in the worst way. You ever meet someone who refuses to buy anything that isn't on clearance? They treat spending money like it's a personal betrayal. Tips? Nope. Quality? Nah. It's all about paying the least, even if it means getting the worst. I once got a massage in a tiny town. 6 people worked on me for the price of a fancy sandwich. Thought I was saving money. Until I stood up and realized I couldn't sit for a week. That kind of savings costs you more than it helps. It's not smart frugality. It's fear wearing a budget hat. And these same folks? They can't bear to pay someone a fair price. They complain that everything costs too much while conveniently forgetting that time, skill, and effort actually have value. They think everyone's overcharging them, while refusing to see their own tight-fisted attitude is the real problem. So what's the lesson here? Simple. Self-pity makes you powerless. Cheapness makes you bitter. Neither one will lead you to the life you want. If you want more, be more. Be someone who invests in yourself, in others, in value, not someone who hoards pennies and blames the weather. 2. Lending money, broke thinking, and that $1 million house you'll never live in. Let me tell you something funny about lending money. It's the fastest way to ruin a good relationship. Someone asks, "Can I borrow $500? And you're thinking, sure, why not? It's just money. But suddenly you're 6 months in, no repayment, and every time you see their name on your phone, you get a twitch in your eye. My grandma, blunt woman, God rest her sass, used to say, "Want to make enemies? Lend them money." And she didn't care whether you were the one asking or giving. Either way, resentment's coming for you. Here's the kicker. Most people don't really understand sacrifice. We talk big. I'll help a friend in need. But the moment we have to part with cash, the generosity dries up faster than a puddle in Texas heat. The issue isn't giving or receiving. The issue is our weird, tangled relationship with money. I hear this nonsense all the time. We can't afford kids yet. Excuse me? Since when did children come with an installment plan and a down payment? People act like they'll finally be ready when their credit score hits nirvana. You don't plan life like you're shopping for furniture at IKEA. You know what that mindset really is? It's poverty thinking. That toxic little habit of overthinking every dollar, of being terrified to spend, of constantly hoarding instead of flowing. People think being cheap is smart. Nah, it's just fear with a coupon. Take that guy who saves every penny, lives like a monk, and then complains life passed him by. That's not wise. That's tragic. And no, I'm not saying you should throw your paycheck at the nearest massage chair. I'm saying if you're always trying to pay less, give less, risk less, you're training yourself to live less. You know what rich people understand? Value. They'll pay good money for good work. And they expect the same. That's why they get more. Because they're willing to part with something first. But broke mindset folks? They want 5-star service at gas station prices, and then whine when nobody hires them. That kind of stingy energy clogs up your life. It's like emotional constipation. Nothing flows. Money, love, opportunity, they all get stuck behind your save more, give less attitude. Honestly, what you need at that point isn't a budget spreadsheet. You need a metaphorical enema. And here's a wild thing sociologists noticed. Ask the average person what they need to be happy, and they'll start listing objects. A house. A car. That one expensive coffee machine with Bluetooth. It's all stuff. But stuff is never the problem. Or the answer. The deeper truth? Money isn't the goal. It's a tool. A hammer doesn't make a house, you do. So when I hear someone say, I want to build an empire, I have to ask, for what? You want $1 million? Cool. What are you going to do with it? Don't say, I'll figure it out later. That's how people end up with gold faucets and an empty soul. I once heard about this guy in Kuala Lumpur who decided to build a 200-story skyscraper. Why? Because the last one was only 180. That's the logic. Forget need. Forget purpose. Just stack floors till your ego gets a nosebleed. Don't get me wrong, it's not bad to want nice things. But if your dream is, I want a house with 37 rooms and a sauna for my cat, we gotta pause and talk about your life plan. Wanting is easy. Knowing why you want something? That's rare. That's where the magic is. So next time you're dreaming about that big purchase, stop and ask yourself, what are you actually going to do with it? If your answer sounds like a Zillow ad with no heart behind it, maybe it's time to go deeper. 3. Panic, paychecks, and poverty thinking, the habits that keep you stuck. Here's another habit that keeps folks broke, measuring everything through the lens of money. If it doesn't come with a price tag, they don't see the value. That kind of thinking? It's tight, narrow, and a dead-end road. And oh man, when the money runs out, the panic hits like they just spotted a shark in the bathtub. Ever seen someone lose it over the idea of missing one paycheck? Total meltdown. Their whole world is tied to that bi-weekly deposit. They're not managing money, they're surviving it. Now, there's a type of person who never lets money move. They hold on to every dollar like it's the last cookie at a family reunion. But money is meant to flow. It's like blood in your financial body. If it stops moving, you've got a problem. The people who grip it too tight are the same ones living paycheck to paycheck, terrified of inflation, job cuts, or that gas bill showing up like a horror movie villain. Meanwhile, in that same storm, someone else is cashing in. You ever notice how some folks seem to thrive during a crisis? It's not magic, it's mindset. Back in the late 90s, I knew a guy who made $6,000 during an economic crash. Everyone else was freaking out, and he was out there buying low, selling high, and sleeping like a baby. See, wealth isn't about having money. It's about not being a hostage to it. Rich people understand that money is a tool, not a master. It comes and goes, rises and falls. They stay flexible. But people with a poverty mindset? They panic when it disappears, like it's never coming back. They forget it's supposed to move. Another killer habit? Spending more than you earn. Yeah, that one. It's everywhere. Doesn't matter how much someone makes, they always find a way to outspend it. New car, new shoes, 5 streaming services they don't watch, and 3 loans to cover the others. They're not living. They're floating on debt and pretending it's a lifestyle. Some folks treat debt like it's an old friend. Oh, I'll just borrow from one card to pay another. And before they know it, they're 5 layers deep, paying interest on interest, wondering why happiness feels so expensive. Truth is, if you're working your tail off and still coming up short, something's gotta give. Either the job's wrong, or your thinking is. Sometimes it's both. And that realization? That's step 1. Here's my favorite bit of wisdom. Happiness isn't about having the most. It's about managing what you've got. You could make 10 grand and be miserable because you're burning 11. Meanwhile, someone earning half that amount might be sleeping like a baby because they're actually living within their means. It's not about how much you have. It's about whether you can breathe while you have it. For cheese, Maybox, and doing what you hate. I read something once from a wealthy guy. Can't remember his name, but his wallet had its own area code. He said, "Money brings satisfaction, but not happiness." And that hit me. Because let's be real, most of us are out here grinding, hoping for that magical moment when we can finally afford to stop checking grocery prices. But the truth? That moment's a myth. Sure, it's nice not to stress about the cost of cheese, literally. I was at a seminar once, and a woman raised her hand, dead serious, and said, "I just want to afford cheese." Not caviar. Not Gucci. Cheese. And that broke my brain for a second. Because somewhere out there, someone's got an entire fridge full of Gouda and still isn't happy. Turns out, the real poverty isn't in your wallet, it's in your habits. And the most dangerous one? Doing stuff you hate just to survive. People drag themselves through jobs that drain the life out of them because it feels safe. Because it pays the bills. Because that's what adults do, right? Wrong. That's what exhausted, resentful, spiritually bankrupt adults do. I once got this wild but oddly brilliant advice. Always be job hunting. Even if you love your job, you should always be on the lookout. Not because you're flaky, but because you never know when life will throw a pink slip your way. Trust me, I've had more jobs than I can count, and half the time, I didn't leave, they left me. One time an astrologer even told me, 9 months max. You aren't built to stay in one place. And weirdly, that was the most accurate career advice I've ever received. People who succeed long-term tend to work in fields they enjoy, even if it started as a side hustle. When you love what you do, you stop obsessing about the money. And that's when it starts showing up. Not right away. Not magically. But slowly, quietly, and consistently. Why? Because you're creating value from a place of joy, not fear. Now here's the part that messes with our heads. Doing more doesn't always equal earning more. Yeah, I know. Sounds like heresy in a culture obsessed with hustle. But it's true. I remember listening to an old Trump lecture years ago, back when he was just a businessman with a questionable tan, and he said something that fried my circuits. Work and income aren't always synchronized. An older guy in the room, looked like a retired cop or someone who pays taxes for a living, stood up and said, "I disagree. You work hard, you get results." And I nodded. That's the American dream, right? But here's the uncomfortable truth. Hard work guarantees sweat, not success. You can bust your tail, give 110%, and still end up broke if you're doing something out of alignment. The grind alone isn't the answer. You've got to work smart, and in the right direction. Because being busy doesn't mean you're going anywhere. You could be sprinting on a treadmill thinking you're making progress, when really, you're just wearing out your knees. So yeah, earn your cheese. But don't spend your life in a cubicle you hate just to afford cheddar. 5. Finding your thing, borrowing from the future, and the mystery of coffee loans. You ever notice how some people work way harder than you, but somehow earn way less? And then, just to mess with your worldview, you see someone who barely lifts a finger and makes bank? Yeah, I've seen it. I think they all work for that guy who owns 3 yachts and still forgets people's birthdays. That disconnect? That's what messes with us. We're trained to believe effort equals reward. But out in the wild, not so synced. People always ask how to find their purpose, like it's hidden in a cereal box somewhere. I've heard every method, from personality tests to horoscopes. But one of the best tools I've ever seen boiled it down to a few real questions. You don't need a PhD to answer them either. Just brutal honesty. 1. What do you love doing? If your answer is lying on the couch, congrats, you're halfway to being a house cat. 2. Do other people value what you do? Can you lie on that couch and get paid? If so, my friend, you've discovered influencer culture. 3. What do you naturally pay attention to? I once helped build a fence, and suddenly, everywhere I looked, fences. Went roof shopping once. Couldn't stop noticing shingles. Bought a used car? Saw it everywhere. Your brain filters the world based on what matters to you. That's no accident. 4. What annoys you? A chef can't stand bland food. A musician cringes at off-key notes. What ticks you off might just reveal what you're wired to fix. 5. What do you spend time and money on? It matters. People invest in what they care about. I make a habit of snooping around people's homes. Not their medicine cabinets, their libraries. No books? We might not vibe. One time, I met a guy with 600 classical music CDs. I knew right then, we were gonna be friends. Passion recognizes passion. See, what we focus on shapes what we attract. Over time, money comes and goes. That's normal. What's not normal? Acting like your bank account is carved in stone. It's seasonal. Like life. Winter comes, and suddenly you're rationing peanut butter. Then spring hits, and you're back at Whole Foods pretending you always shop there. But here's where things get wild. We can borrow from the future. Think about it like this. When you take out a loan, you're pulling money from tomorrow to survive today. When you drink coffee, you're stealing energy from your afternoon to boost your morning. It's like an energy loan. You feel jazzed now, but later, you crash. Hard. Same with money. You take too much from the future, and eventually, your future shows up empty-handed, looking at you like, really, dude? You can even do this with relationships, health, or time. You can drain what you haven't earned yet, and trust me, it comes back with interest. That's why people burn out. Why they ache without knowing why. You're cashing checks your soul didn't authorize. So yeah, hustle, but hustle smart. Pay attention to what pulls your focus. Follow what annoys you. Spend time where your heart already lives. And please, for the love of your future self, stop drinking 4 coffees before lunch and pretending you're fine. 6. Gratitude, purpose, and the art of wanting just enough. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. A good attitude is a resource. A good wife. Definitely a resource. But what happens when we're so focused on providing that we stop actually showing up? I've seen it. People come to me and say, my husband's great. Leaves at 8, back by midnight. Says he loves me, but he's never really here. And that's when it hits them. I'm married a paycheck with shoes. At some point, all the hard work stops feeling noble and starts feeling lonely. Now, back to this purpose thing everyone's chasing. How do I find it? They ask. There's a trick. You have to answer the right questions, the real ones. Like, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you do if money wasn't a problem? Now, poor folks answer that second one fast. I'd spend it. Cute, but shallow. Purpose lives in the part of you that creates, not the part that consumes. We've all had times when we were broke, but weirdly happy. A tiny dorm room. Ramen for dinner. And still, we laughed more. And then, there's now. Big house, 2-car garage, and somehow we're miserable. How'd that happen? Somewhere along the line, we replaced meaning with stuff. That brings me to one of my favorite old stories. There was this all-powerful king who conquered everything, literally ruled the material world. One day, a little boy showed up. Spoiler, the boy was actually God, undercover, and asked him for just 3 steps of land. The king laughed. You could ask for anything. Why so little? And the boy says, if you can't be satisfied with enough, you'll never be satisfied with more. Let that marinate. See, true happiness isn't about how much you have. It's about how much you need. And that, my friend, is a lesson most people never learn. The poison that ruins lives? Ingratitude. When you stop being thankful, your heart closes up shop. It doesn't matter if you're sipping wine on a yacht or drinking tap water in your one bedroom. The moment you stop appreciating what is, you've already lost. Want to be rich? Start counting what you've got, not what you don't. Be grateful for your body, your breath, your kids, your stubborn old car, and even your clumsy neighbor who keeps borrowing your ladder. Because gratitude opens the gate for more, while entitlement slams it shut. And for the ladies, I get it. You want to inspire your man to step up, stretch, grow? That's good. That's your superpower. But don't mistake pushing for punishing. Telling him your dreams? That's sexy. Expecting him to finance a Gucci fantasy by Tuesday? Not so much. The magic? Wanting just a little more than he can give right now. That stretch, that, almost within reach, desire, is what motivates a good man. It says, I believe in you. It gets him moving. Not because you demanded it, but because you inspired it. So what's the takeaway here? Learn to want wisely. Be grateful daily. Choose meaning over madness. And remember, the goal isn't to have it all. The goal is to have enough, and still feel full. 7. Bananas, brand names, and the blessing, or burden, of family. Let me just say this. If you're feeling like something's always missing in your life, it might not be money or luck. It might be piety. Yeah, I said it. Sometimes, I wonder why the power always cuts out at my place when everyone else's lights stay on. Maybe the universe is trying to tell me something. Now, let's switch gears. Ever try to save a few bucks by driving halfway across town just to buy bananas 20 cents cheaper? I've done it. You spend more in gas and time than the fruit's even worth. One time I walked forever just to get bananas at a bargain price, only to end up with 3 sad little ones in the bag. That's when I realized value isn't just about cost, it's about cents. I remember being at a market once. Big crowd, guys selling peaches. I asked, how much a kilo? He said 100 bucks. I tried to haggle. He looked me dead in the eye and said, why should I cheat you? That fruit stand taught me more about dignity and pricing than half the finance books I've read. Some people obsess over saving pennies, like refusing to buy bananas until March because they'll be 7 cents cheaper. That's not smart money management. That's poverty thinking disguised as discipline. Same goes for luxury stuff. I know people who walk past the store window every day swearing they'll never buy that expensive brand, while secretly dreaming about it. Look, I get it. You like bags. I like boots. To each their own. But here's a fun fact. In Spain, there was a raid that showed 80% of those high-end designer bags are fakes, made in the same factories as the knockoffs. That $4,000 label might be the same as the $20 version the street guy is selling. So maybe let's all calm down about the handbags, yeah? And now for the big one, family. There's a strange new habit people have, keeping their distance from relatives. Some say it's peace of mind. I think it's a quiet symptom of modern poverty. Because love, support, roots? That stuff's priceless. Sure, not all relatives are a picnic. Some show up with drama instead of dessert. But back in the day, when a young couple got married, everyone pitched in. Family helped build their house. These days, you're lucky if someone shows up with a casserole and not a 600-month mortgage suggestion. Truth is, family can be your biggest blessing or your worst headache. Like a knife, it depends how it's used. The same aunt who drives you crazy might also be the one who babysits your kid when life hits the fan. So yeah, it's tempting to go solo, to keep the circle small. But cutting off the roots doesn't help the tree grow. Sometimes you've got to reconnect, not because they're perfect, but because they're yours. 8. Family, fortunes, and the box of rotten lunch meat. Let's get this straight. Yes, there are some relatives you should absolutely keep at arm's length, and that's okay. Just because they share your DNA doesn't mean they get a key to your peace. But here's where it gets interesting. Most of us think of relatives as cousins, in-laws, or that uncle who shows up with conspiracy theories and potato salad. But how many people think of their spouse when the topic of family comes up? That's the real test. If you can't build something solid with the person you live with, how in the world are you going to build healthy relationships anywhere else? Let's be honest, success at home is the foundation. A man who fails in his marriage? It's usually just a matter of time before it seeps into his career, his health, his entire life. The flip side? When you're lying in a hospital bed hooked up to machines, you'll quickly see who really cares. Spoiler, it's not your Instagram followers. It's your partner. Maybe your dog. Probably not Dave from accounting. That's why relationships, especially the ones that truly matter, need to be treated like your bank account. You protect what you deposit into. Cold, but true. Now, people get into these lectures thinking they're about money, but the topic always swerves into something deeper. Like how your wife isn't impressed by your financial spreadsheet. She wants attention. And not the, "I'm listening while watching football" kind. Real, present attention. And while we're at it, let's talk about this strange obsession with doing the opposite just to prove a point. Some guys act like they need less, want less, are fine eating a 6-week-old tomato and calling it dinner. But come on, man. That's not frugality, that's martyrdom with a side of stomach cramps. There's this parable I love, about a guy who buys a box of deli meat, let's call it slip, for fun. It spoils a little, but he won't throw it out. He saves it. Every day, he opens the fridge, sees it getting worse, and saves it again. By the end of the week, he's saved the whole box right into the trash. And maybe that's the point. What you cling to in fear, you often lose anyway. So no, you don't need to save everything. You need to earn more. Because the truth is, your income can grow as big as your mindset allows. Saving has a ceiling. Earning? That's a sky with no roof. And let me say this, especially for the ladies, it's not about needing piles of money. Most of the time, it's about needing presence. You say, "I want more money," but what you mean is, "I want more attention, more care, more connection." Money's the symbol. Attention is the need. And sometimes the man you married is working himself to death not to provide, but to avoid. Avoid coming home. Avoid being present. Avoid facing the mess inside his own head. You ever consider that? 9. Men, money, and why he'd rather work than come home. Let's be real. Every guy likes the idea of earning money. I've never once met a man who said, "You know what I hate? Making money." It's not a thing. Sure, some guys struggle to bring it in, but hating the hustle? Nah. They love it when it's working. Now here's the twist. Women often ask, "Why is he never home?" And we say, "He's working hard for the family." Sounds noble, right? But sometimes the truth is a bit messy. Sometimes he's not home because he doesn't want to be. Not because of duty or deadlines. He just prefers being anywhere else. That's a hard pill to swallow, I know. But if a man is choosing to bury himself in meetings, side gigs, and endless errands, it might not be about the bills, it might be about escape. And let's not kid ourselves, some of those so-called meetings look a lot like spa days with bad decisions and questionable company. But hey, even writers like Bukowski made time for trouble. Now here's where it gets fun. What does it mean to be a normal man? A job? A car? A credit score? That's all window dressing. Truth is, a man's normal if he chooses effort over excuses, even if he's still figuring it out. But ask most men this. If you could get the same result by doing nothing, would you still hustle? 10 out of 10 would say, "Nah, I'll take the couch." And guess what? So would I. I once came home and my wife had turned our backyard into a full-on farm. Currants, cold storage, jam factory, you name it. You think I jumped up and joined her? Nope. I sat down and contemplated the mysteries of the universe. For a year. But here's the catch, she married a normal man. A decent guy with a decent job and a used car that mostly works. Now she's wondering, what if he can't take care of me and the kid? That's the moment you either step up or step out. Can't have it both ways. As the old saying goes, take off the cross or stop dragging the guilt around with it. Look, a guy will pay for dinner with a stranger but flinch at buying his wife a coffee. Why? Because we've been taught to chase approval, not connection. To impress the world, but forget the one waiting at home. And ladies, let's talk about that moment when you realize your man's working late is code for avoiding life. It hits hard. You get sad. You get angry. You turn into a mix of tears and sarcasm. But the answer isn't to accuse, it's to ask, what are we even doing here? Also, about tipping, yeah, men hate it. We'll argue over $2 like we're defending a kingdom. Why pay more when you don't have to? It's not stinginess, it's logic. Broken logic, maybe, but logic all the same. Bottom line? Understanding men isn't about figuring out what they say. It's about decoding what they avoid. If he's not coming home, it's not because he can't. It's because he doesn't want to. And if he's always working, it's not always about money. Sometimes, it's about not wanting to face the silence at the dinner table. So what's the real currency here? It's not money. It's attention. And if a man's giving it elsewhere, believe me, that's where his loyalty is parked too. 10. Why she works like a mule while he just lies there. So here's something that got me thinking. Why do some women keep working their tails off, even when it feels like their whole world's falling apart? Like even their kid might not make it through winter. And yet, they still keep going to work like clockwork. I'll tell you why. Because deep down, she doesn't trust the man next to her to handle something as basic as bringing home a paycheck. It's not about ambition or independence. It's about survival. You see, if a woman keeps burning the potatoes every night, the problem isn't the potatoes. It's the fact no one taught her how to handle fire, literally or emotionally. She's exhausted, doing 5 things wrong, repeating the same mistakes because she's stuck in a loop. Meanwhile, he's over there with his feet up, watching the world spin while she works like a draft horse. Someone asked, "What can fix this?" The answer came quick: quit your job. And not because she's lazy, because she's carrying more than she should. But in order to stop, she has to trust him to start. And if she never trusted him from the beginning? Well, there's the root. Women are out here trying to do everything because at some point they were told, "You figure it out." So they did, again and again. While he sat there, either too tired or too clueless to notice, she was carrying the entire family on her back like some sort of domestic superhero. And now it's December. The kid's in 1st grade, still wearing terry cloth shorts and sneakers. No winter coat. She's stuffing bread with more bread because that's all they've got. And what's he doing? Lying there. Still. Lying there while she worries herself sick, while the fly on his forehead has more urgency than he does. Eventually, he'll get hungry, realize there's nothing to eat, and go out with the guys, maybe steal a few fries, maybe come back with ketchup on his sleeve, and not much else. And at the end of the day, he rests. Like he earned it. But she's still spinning, between fear, frustration, and figuring out how to feed a kid on scraps. She didn't dream of this life, but she's living it because somebody had to step up. Here's the brutal truth. Sometimes, the woman doesn't want to work. She just has no choice. So don't ask, "Why is she always working?" Ask instead, "What made her stop trusting him to provide?" 11. When she works, he sleeps, and somehow involved. Let me tell you a story about a woman, burnout, barely hanging on, still waking up every morning to keep everything afloat. Her man? Still lying there, half asleep, emotionally unavailable, slippers untouched, like a statue of missed potential. Meanwhile, she's out there doing what needs to be done, not because she loves it, but because someone has to. People will say, "That's just how it is. You're supposed to feed him. That's your job." Really? Feeding a grown man like he's a rescue puppy is the plan? Here's the truth. When a woman is outworking her man and still getting blamed for the chaos at home, the problem isn't logistics, it's trust. She doesn't trust him to lead, so she took over. And now, she's too tired to let go. Someone once told me, You live in America. You should live for a dream. Yeah. Tell that to the woman making lunch out of yesterday's bread, while the kid sits home in December in shorts because there's no coat. And the husband? Still lying there, waiting for someone else to fix it. That's not partnership. That's survival. But then it takes a weird turn, because some people, when faced with this imbalance, say, well, it's all karma. Sure. That's convenient. Blame the universe, not the lazy dude in sweatpants. And don't get me started on the spiritual cover-ups. I've met people who will quote scripture while ducking child support, who say things like, feed her, it's your duty, as if that settles the entire emotional contract of a relationship. It doesn't. That phrase? Instant disqualification from being taken seriously. Now, I've also heard some wild spiritual metaphors, having 4 coats in Vrindavan. 1 gold, 1 red, 1 with a remote control, apparently. And everyone wanted to wear it just once. There's this beautiful idea that in the divine world, warmth isn't about temperature, it's about presence. You're cold because someone stopped holding you. That hits. Relationships, whether divine or domestic, aren't built on perfection. They're built on intention. And when that breaks down, well, even goddesses cry. She lost it. She stormed out. She threw him out. She cried in the temple stone basement. She was furious. And still, she was queen. It wasn't about drama, it was about depth. Emotion means something matters. If she's yelling, if she's exhausted, if she's saying, I can't do this anymore, she's not crazy. She's awake. And tired of being alone in a 2-person story. So yes, it gets cold. Not from the weather, but from the distance. And sometimes all it takes is a coat. Not a literal one, though that'd help, but an act of warmth, of effort, of saying, I see you. Let me carry something for once. Because in the end, no one's asking for miracles. Just a little shared weight, a little earned peace, and maybe, finally, a chance to rest together, both of them. 12. Angry wives, spiritual drama, and why you shouldn't use God as your marriage counselor. So there's this story from Vrindavan, about a bunch of animals bragging about how important they are. The monkey says he's crucial because he delivers messages from the divine couple. The peacock says he's essential because he teaches God to dance. Even a random bird claims he's the reason everyone gets around after late-night love sessions. And then, there's this old snake, just lying under a tree, doing nothing. Everyone's like, what's this guy doing here? They mock him. He's slow, old, probably past his prime. But here's the twist. When things get bad, that same quiet snake unleashes his power and clears the whole field. Moral of the story? Don't underestimate the quiet ones. And don't assume your usefulness has to look flashy. Now, about relationships. I know it's tempting to take these divine love stories and try to apply them to your own mess at home. I don't care how good he is at playing guitar or quoting poetry. These cosmic stories? They're symbolic, spiritual, and beautiful. But using them to justify why you're still cooking dinner for a man who hasn't looked you in the eye in 6 months? That's not divine devotion. That's delusion. So if you're angry, really angry, that's okay. Anger is not the enemy. Repressed anger turns into sickness. But uncontrolled anger wrecks everything. The trick is to express it right. Not at a wedding. Not in front of your grandma. Not while the kids are doing their homework. But at the right time, in the right tone. You're allowed to say, you've hurt me. I don't trust you. This is not okay. You're allowed to feel what you feel without exploding or pretending everything's fine. You can even cry. Just not on the subway platform or in aisle 5 of Walmart. Some of you are trying to fix your real-world pain by acting out a divine drama that wasn't meant for you. And that's why you're still hurting. You're not in a myth. You're in a marriage. Stop comparing your story to ancient love poems carved into temple walls. Talk about yourself. Stop hiding behind borrowed metaphors. Your situation deserves its own language, not a rerun of sacred mythology. No one here needs to write spiritual fanfiction to justify why their husband forgot their birthday. And for the record, That complicated tangle of emotions you're carrying, guilt, anger, confusion, devotion, isn't a flaw. It's human. And you don't need 10 fictional characters and 3 spiritual planes to explain it. Just ask the question that really matters. What do I need? And who's willing to meet me there? 13. Divine confusion, macaroni, and why we're all just a little angry. Let's be honest, most of us are out here trying to understand life, relationships, and maybe even God, using a spiritual GPS we downloaded from a half-baked meme and a temple souvenir shop. We go on these sacred trips, stand under a holy tree, someone marks our forehead, and we feel something real deep, unshakable. And for a second, we think, this is it. I finally get it. Then we come home, and 3 days later we're yelling at our spouse about burnt pancakes and winter boots. That's the cycle. We try to copy divine love stories and squeeze our ordinary, often dysfunctional marriages into that frame. But here's the truth. You can't build a strong home with bricks from a fantasy. You need concrete, real, flawed, honest work. Because the divine? It isn't always meant to be imitated. Sometimes, it's just meant to be felt. See, we want to take those spiritual highs and translate them into well-being. We chase female well-being like it's a scented candle that'll fix a broken relationship. But here's the reality. No amount of yoga, turmeric lattes, or sacred chants will fix a man who won't get off the couch or a woman who's burning out trying to be everything. And the anger? Oh yeah, it's there. Most of us don't know how to handle it. We hold it in until it rots us from the inside. Or we blast it out at the wrong time, wrong person, wrong place. But anger, real anger, comes from one thing, unmet desire. We wanted something. We couldn't have it. Now we're mad. It starts small, like admiring someone else's car, or house, or partner. Innocent. But then we get attached. And when we don't get it, boom, resentment, bitterness, mood swings. And suddenly, you're flipping out about macaroni while blaming feng shui. It's not about the pasta. It never is. So how do you fix it? You don't need to become a monk or move to Vrindavan. You need to stop romanticizing your dissatisfaction. Stop treating every desire as sacred. Learn to walk away before attachment turns into anger. That Mustang you keep dreaming about? It's not the car. It's the feeling of worth you think it'll give you. And that's the truth for most of us. We're not actually craving the object. We're craving how we think we'll feel if we had it. So next time you catch yourself spinning out, pause. Ask, what am I actually chasing here? And more importantly, can I let go of wanting it before it eats me alive? Because sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is look at the macaroni, take a breath, and say, it's just pasta. 14. Why we burn, blame, and still keep going. You ever notice how some desires just won't die? You sit there, day after day, pretending you've let them go, but deep down, they're still glowing like coals under the surface. You never fulfilled them. Never even looked them in the eye. You just fantasized, danced around them. And now they're burning holes in your patience. That's how a lot of us operate, simmering with things we never acted on. We see things, want them, can't have them, and instead of moving on, we stay and stew. And when it all explodes, we act shocked. But it was never sudden. The buildup started long ago. You think anger shows up because someone said the wrong thing. No. Anger shows up because someone reminded you of the thing you never got. And look, when people get angry, they don't always choose the right target. Sometimes you're just in the splash zone. That's why, when someone's losing it, and it's not your fight, don't stay. Step away. Let them crash without pulling you down too. But what if it's my spouse? You ask. What if I can't run? You listen, but only if they're truly trying to connect. You don't let them drag you through the mud. You're not their therapist. You're not their punching bag. You're their partner. And they are yours. You're not there to fix each other. You're there to grow together. Now, here's the thing. We all reach for spiritual answers when life gets too loud. We compare our real problems to stories from ancient texts. We imagine ourselves as enlightened souls just working through karma. It's real. It needs less incense and more honest communication. Psychology exists for a reason. It helps us name our chaos and navigate through it without quoting Sanskrit. You want peace? Then call things what they are. Stop pretending your burnout is sacred sacrifice. Stop blaming God because you're still angry about how dinner turned out. And speaking of sacred, sometimes something special does happen. A moment, a gathering, a conversation that shifts you forever. You don't fully feel it at the time. It's like watching your kid walk into school with a backpack and a flower. They don't realize it's the start of a journey. And maybe you don't either. But one day, you'll remember this moment, this time, this lesson, and realize it mattered more than you thought. You didn't choose all of it. You were kind of pulled into it, like a fish on a divine line. And even when you think you've swum away, that line tugs again. Because once your heart wakes up, it doesn't fall back asleep so easily. And hey, about coffee? Yeah, it's tough to quit. It's legal, but it's got claws. It won't ruin your life like the hard stuff, but it will whisper, "You can't start your day without me." I broke up with it once. It wasn't easy. But after 2 weeks, the grip loosens. Like any addiction, you stop feeding it, and it eventually gets quiet. So here's to the come down. To the coffee we cut, the desires we face, the love we try to repair, and the divine chaos we somehow survive. This was never about perfect answers. It was about having the guts to ask better questions. So, if you made it this far, first of all, you've got stamina, and second, maybe, just maybe, something in all this hit home. Maybe you saw yourself in the woman carrying too much. Maybe you saw yourself in the man who forgot how to come home. Or maybe you just realized that even divine love stories don't excuse a dirty kitchen and cold silence at the dinner table. Whatever you took from this, remember, your life isn't a myth, it's a masterpiece in progress. You're allowed to be messy. You're allowed to be tired. But you're also allowed to stop, to ask better questions, and to live on your own terms. If no one's told you this today, I'm proud of you for showing up, for listening, and for wanting more from life than just survival. Now go take a breath, take a walk, maybe even take a break from all the noise. And hey, don't forget to like, subscribe, or just sit quietly and let this one settle in. Either way, I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong, stay sharp, and stay you.